How are we all going? First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land of which we are gathered here today. I love the internet. I basically grew up on the internet. Now, when I was 14 years old, I actually started my career entering design contests online. Now, how these sort of platforms work is a client will go on one of these platforms, they'll submit a brief, whether it be for a website, logo, 3D art, something like that. Then designers from all around the world will actually compete to submit their designs. Then the client will pick their favorite, and whichever design the client chooses is the one that gets paid. Which means that if you didn't win, you didn't get paid. Now, I entered over 130 of these contests, but only won 8 of them. Which means I was working for free 94% of the time. Yes, still hurts. Now, it doesn't take a genius to tell you that this isn't a very good business model. But it does teach you one thing very quickly, which is that you need to learn to embrace rejection. As unethical as these sort of sites are, it really does force you to put your creative ego aside and teaches you to embrace rejection, which I actually think is a really good thing for designers. Now, the other thing that these sites taught me is that knowing how to design and being a designer are 2 different things. Knowing how to design is matching colors, understanding typography, layout, it's the visual stuff. It's the craft itself. However, being a designer is learning how to communicate, manage projects, deal with clients, pricing yourself. It's the soft skills. Now, today I want to talk you through the 3 stages that I've gone through, from designer, founder, and CEO, and how all 3 are really just design, each one being a canvas bigger than the last. So let's start with being a designer. Now, as I mentioned, I started freelancing when I was quite young, at 14. I'm 24 now, and I've had the privilege of actually working on a bunch of different projects over the years. Essentially, anything we can claim to do as designers, I've probably done it for a client at some point, whether it be websites, logo, products, branding, illustration. I've done it all. But where things really started to take a turn was when I started to use Webflow. Now, quickly, show of hands, who uses Webflow? Okay, more than I expected. Does anyone not know what Webflow is? Okay, perfect. So essentially, Webflow is really great because what it can allow you to do is turn your designs for a website and actually build them out, and actually you become the developer. But you don't know how to write code. That's okay, because you don't need to with Webflow. And essentially, why this was really powerful was because I could build and publish these sites myself without needing to fork the cost of a heavy developer. And then suddenly what happened was my superpower wasn't just design. I was the designer who, yes, could design, but also develop and publish to the internet with speed. And this sort of like stack became my niche, and I became a full stack designer. Now, I think you should learn to publish, not prototype. Because when you understand the full process, from concept to deployment, you actually become a smarter designer. Let's say you're designing a landing page and you might start in Figma. The decisions you make along that way, whether it be for a hero section, navbar, whatever, if you can understand that full process, you actually do a good job at future-proofing yourself, because you'll make decisions that you'll know will be important later on. Now, we kind of live in this weird world, that was meant to be a video, where tools like AI and ChatGPT are the talking point. And at least for me, this is the first real time that I've seen designers forced to change. Now, with tools like this, making good enough design good enough, I actually think having a full stack approach might be the way we become irreplaceable. Often we get told to niche down, right? Be the best of the very best at one specific thing, whether it be to be the best UX designer for fintech or the best 3D animator for SaaS companies. And to be honest, this makes sense. You don't want to be a little fish in the ocean. You want to be a shark in the fish tank. You want to stand out. But what if, instead of niching down, you niched out? In this generation AI that we're going through, I think your superpower as a designer is the combination of your skill sets and being able to bring that together contextually across an entire experience. Now, while freelancing, I got really obsessed with obviously how to design, but also how to be a designer. And I ended up sharing some of this content online. Now, this was like 2018, 2019, when those sort of like Instagram educational carousels were like the #1 way for designers to consume content. And I ended up growing this account called Pitchproof to a global audience of over 90,000 designers, where we would teach not how to design, but how to be a designer. And I ended up turning that into a bit of an income source as well, charging for things like brand deals, sponsored posts, along that range. And it actually taught me a really valuable lesson about sales. It's a little bit backwards, I know, but the best way to sell is not to sell. Essentially, by creating this free content online and just giving value up front, what it was actually doing was just building relationships at scale, building trust. So suddenly I had all these different people start to come to me, whether it be brands or clients who want websites or anything. And I already had a relationship with them without actually having a conversation with them. So I know it's a bit backwards, and I hate sales, I'm not a salesy person at all, but I take this with me wherever I go. Now, at this time too, at the end of 2019, I had just finished high school, and I decided that university wasn't right for me, so I decided to go get a full-time job. And I ended up working for a place called Blackmagic Design down the road as a web designer. And this is at the start of 2020. Then COVID hit. And we all were forced to work from home, and we were all watching TV, trying to understand how many cases there are that day and if we're allowed to go to the park. And I ended up losing that job simply because I was technically a full-time contractor at the time, and they didn't want to have contractors, which is fair enough. Nobody knew what was going to go on. But fortunately for me, I was doing a little bit of freelancing and a little bit of content on the side. And this was also meant to be a GIF. It was like a cool, animation. But it really does teach you the lesson in times like that you always need to milk 2 cows. Now, essentially what I mean by this is to have multiple income sources. And I think as designers and as creators, we actually have one of the greatest skill sets to actually diversify our income. Now, you might have an additional income source that's large, it might be small, doesn't matter. I think just having an additional source of income will actually not only teach you a lot, but potentially, in times of crisis, help you out as well. Now, actually at the back end of 2019, growing this sort of content and community online, I decided to host the world's first online design conference. And yes, pre-pandemic, timing was pretty good, to be honest. And the whole concept was that we want to bring all these sort of design creators and influencers together in one space for the first time. And we called it Front Row, and we ended up running this event basically every single year since. It's been attended by tens of thousands of designers from all around the world, sponsored by the likes of Adobe and Wix as well. Now, like I mentioned, this was during the pandemic. Virtual events went flying, everyone was on Zoom, and my co-founder Tom and I, who you can see at the top right there, we decided that we wanted to turn what we knew about virtual events and try to turn that into some sort of software company. So we founded Storytel, and we did the whole startup-y thing. We got a founding team, we tried to raise some money, we put together our products. Now, within a couple of years, this ultimately failed, just because we couldn't get the market fit that it needed. But during this time, at the back of it, I discovered Framer. Now, again, show of hands, who here has heard of Framer? Oh my God, that's a lot of people. Okay. And show of hands, who here uses Framer? Okay, fantastic. So I like to describe Framer as a Figma with a publish button. Now, after using Webflow for a number of years, Figma just kind of felt right for designers. It felt intuitive, it felt familiar. And jumping into Framer, for the very first time, it felt like I could build just as good, if not better websites than, say, Webflow. Now, I had initially been attracted to Framer because I was seeing that people online were selling Framer templates, selling a website template for $30, $40, and it was a good way to kind of make some extra money. And I thought, hey, maybe I can create a template and try to, get some extra cash, try to add another cow. And I remember locking myself in my office one day, opening up Framer for the first time, and I spent about 6 hours, and I built an entire landing page. I thought, hey, this tool's really good. Like, it's intuitive, feels like Figma, but also feels familiar to like Webflow and things like that. And I was thinking, I'm like, hey, maybe I can sell it for $20, $30, make some extra money. But then I realized that the best way to sell is not to sell. So later that night on Twitter, I posted that template and I said, hey, I was going to charge for this, but I'm going to give it away for free. And people really liked it. So I did it again the next day, and then again the next day, and the next day. And I did it for about a month straight, until people were starting to ask me, hey, Ryan, can you teach me Framer? And I'm like, sure, I can teach you Framer. So I released the course. And in the first week of launching that course, we had over 50 students enroll, which at the time just like blew my mind. I even pitched Framer to be their first official Framer teacher, launching Framer Academy with them in 2023, which is now their official home of all their Framer education. And suddenly, just within a couple of months, I'd become like busy, like really real busy. And I was kind of forced to go into founder mode. I was creating YouTube tutorials, teaching people how to use Framer. I was working with Framer as a client, as well as other clients to build their sites in Framer. I also had a course which I was really teaching people how to use Framer and get the most out of it. And I was even building products on top of Framer that solve specific use cases for their audience. So for example, this one here, Framer Forms. At the time of releasing this, Framer didn't even have a custom form builder, which seems like a little bit weird for a website builder. But I thought, hey, I can come up with a solution for this. So I spent a number of nights in ChatGPT trying to hack together some code. Now, I'm not a developer. I do not write code, but I can tell you what, I can definitely try to prompt it and try to hack something together. But essentially, I kind of like became this go-to Framer guy. And I got really obsessed with building the Framerverse, an ecosystem of products and education for Framer. Now, only after months of doing this, I didn't plan on it being a business. It just kind of happened. And I was just kind of doubling down on things that I knew was working. But only after months of doing this did I realize it needed to be its own entity. It didn't even have a name. So I ended up calling it Insert Frame. Now, when I look back at those few months, I think what I did really, really well was I didn't build MVPs, I built MLPs. So an MVP is a minimal viable product. And it's often a lower standard of quality that solves a specific problem. But I think V1s should be polished, especially because we have the tools now that lets us move quicker and get there faster. MLP, minimal lovable product. May not have all the bells and whistles, but it meets a certain bar. Now, over the past 18 months, we've rapidly grown Insert Frame to an audience of over 25,000 designers and over 10,000 paying customers. We're all while actually keeping a small team of just 8 people. We've shipped multiple products, like a Shopify integration that actually lets you build your e-commerce stores in Framer, which is really, really cool because now we're seeing all these different use cases come to this website builder. Our products were even used earlier this year at the Australian Open to power some of the experiences there, which, like, for me as a tennis fan, was just like a dream achieved. But what I think I'm most proud of is the team that we've built along the way. I really like to describe our business as a niche within a niche within a niche. You've got designers, then you've got Framer, and then we're sort of like serving the designers who use Framer. It's very like niche specific, but the fact that we've been able to actually build a global team and local team, some of them are here in the front row, that really support this mission has been truly inspiring. And you kind of get to this point, right, where you have to fire yourself from founder and kind of make yourself a CEO. Now, I actually ended up putting together this company playbook that's essentially for the whole team, because my belief is that designing and shaping an organization is just design on a larger canvas. And I put together this playbook, and it's public for our entire team, and it covers every topic, from our values, how we ship products, how we deal with customer support, everything. And I've got this so we can all actually be aligned as a team. And I just wanted to share with you a few things that are in here because I really do think it shows how our organization is purposefully designed. So first, we have teams, not departments. We have a run team, a product team, and a storytelling team. Our run team is responsible for managing our day-to-day operations, things like customer support, general ops, making sure the buses go on time. Then we have our product team, which is responsible for our Framer plugins and products. These are our developers, our engineers, the people shipping new things. Then we have our storytelling team, which is responsible for our marketing and content. They make sure that the content we put out is really great and also make sure that the right people are seeing that. Now, as a small team, by far our biggest advantage is speed. And we communicate speed as execution prioritization, meaning it's important to prioritize the right stuff, move quickly without missing the important things, but don't overspend on things that don't matter. Speed, execution, prioritization. Now, everyone on our team too has some sort of creative background, whether it's their role or not. For example, our head of operations has a background in design. Our head of customer experience has a background in design, but it's not necessarily the role they play. Now, what I've learned about managing creative people is you need to nudge, not shove. You can shove, but you might have a HR disaster. What I've found is you need to give creative people the space to do what they do best. And to be honest, I actually prefer not to hire creative people full-time, especially initially, because often they still need to work on their own sort of projects. Now, the right team can manage themselves. 99% of the time, team members just need clarity. And you can provide this in two ways. One, a nudge, not shove, in the right direction. And two, more detailed briefing. In 99% of cases, this is what we've found. At Insert Frame, we embrace new tools. We're not afraid of them. And I'm pretty proud to say we don't pay for Adobe. We don't require degrees for hiring, nor are we religious about any traditional methods of work. If you have a new or improved way of doing something, great. Let me show you a few tools that we actually use on a day-to-day basis. So first is Discord. Now, we actually use Discord over Slack. We just like it better. There's a bit more we can do. The search is better. There's a bit more in terms of customization. There's a lot more we can do in terms of integration. So we actually use Discord. Next, we use Notion, which is our internal operating system. It literally is our company OS. Everything we work on goes through Notion. Now, I have to mention Framer here as well, because we actually have over 8 websites that are powered by Framer. It literally is the thing that lets us do what we do. It's our marketing channel. It's the way we make money. So I do have to mention them, and we are in Framer every single day. Now, this one's a great one. Raise your hands. Who here has heard of Lovable? Okay, great. If you haven't heard of Lovable, please take a photo of this or write it down, go home tonight and check it out. Essentially, Lovable, I think they're the fastest growing startup in Europe at the moment. Crazy story, but they're essentially leading the race in terms of vibe coding. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of vibe coding, essentially it means you can build websites, applications, software, whatever you want, just with writing prompts, zero code. We essentially use Lovable to play with ideas and make internal tools. So for example, we've just moved into a new office in Brunswick, and we wanted some sort of like dashboard for our team. So for example, we might want the office attendants to show who's going to be in on what days. For out of milk, we could add it to a shopping list. You'd be able to book a meeting room. Now we could use Calendly and all these different tools that kind of work, but just not right for us. So we actually use Lovable to build exactly what we want, and we don't need to pay a developer. Now, the last one I'll mention here too is Zapier, because it basically lets you automate everything and connect all our tools together. Now, from every stage, from designer to founder to CEO, it's just design. As a founder, you're on the tools. You're in Figma, you're pushing pixels. As a founder, you're designing for every touch point, from writing emails to resetting passwords. And as a CEO, you're designing an organization, which, in my opinion, is the largest canvas you can design on. Now, if I'm going to leave you with one thing, it's going to be this. Lasting designers require context across an entire experience. We can no longer be siloed to our craft. We need to understand every touch point, and we need to design like a startup, because that's how we can become irreplaceable. Now, if you want to connect with me, it's basically at the Ryan Hayward everywhere. I'm actively creating framer content on X, Twitter, and YouTube. But if you do want to send me a message, LinkedIn's probably the best place, which is where that QR code goes. And if you do see me around the rest of the day, pretty please come up, say hello. I'd love to have a conversation with you. But until next time, I'll see you later. Thank you, and thank you.